Hi, I'm Niall from Wheel Decals. I've got a 2017 to 2013 Yamaha R6 race bike. I'm just going to go through the decal kit install and highlight a few things which might be helpful. On the kit, you'll see it'll also come with this page, which is a printout of the layout of the kit. So hopefully it'll help you organize it. So yeah, I'll get into it now and show you how I would apply it. So starting out, you would like to have a workbench that's nice and clean and tidy, so that you can set out the decals, put them into groups, whatever it makes it easiest for you. And then I would just go with around the bike with a degreaser or an isopropyl alcohol, just to make sure that there's no polish, insects, dust, oil residue or anything like that there on the bike that could affect how well the decals apply. Then I have the squeegee, which I'll use for sort of large flat surfaces like the belly pan. And then I've got a couple of knives. This 30-degree angle blade, it's good for cutting out the holes where the quick release fasteners and other bolts are. And then this here knife, if there's any edges that I want to try and tidy up a little, I'll use it. And then lastly, with the heat gun, if there's any surfaces that have quite a bit of curvature, I'll use it to apply some heat which softens the decal and helps apply. But even more importantly than that, after it's applied and looking well, you want to heat it up again. That will break the memory of the decal and stop it wanting to pull back into its original form. Now that the bike is cleaned, I'm just going to start with a nice easy piece, and this one's a good one to show because there's a little tip that I can share. So if you were to remove all of the backing paper, then it becomes quite flimsy, and this here is sort of a thinner area, so it wants to come off square. So normally on these, I will just cut back about 10 mil of the backing paper. So now it's still got some structure to it, and I can see the square edge of the fender. I can just start to touch it in place. And then remove the rest of the backing paper. Obviously as well, make sure that your hands are clean as well before starting this. So for the likes of this piece, you don't really need to use the heat gun, but at the end of the job, it's not bad to just go around the entire bike, just applying some heat, just checking edges. It really softens up the adhesive to really grip hold of the fairing. In the kit, there's a number of symmetrical pieces. Depending on the surface shape that they're being applied to, I'll approach them in slightly different ways. This piece here is going underneath the tail. I can see that it's a flat surface, so similar to the fender, I'll remove a piece of one edge, usually the bottom. Check that it is even before removing the rest of the backing paper and applying up the center and then out each side. On these three pieces, I know that there's a lot more curvature on them, so rather than taking some of the backing paper off one edge, I will remove a strip down the center and I will just show you how I do that. So I'll create 3 tears at the top. And then gradually work it down. It doesn't have to be perfect, but at least it's not the entire piece that you're working with at the start, because if you don't get it right, it's a lot less to remove and reposition. And then because the curvature is normally to either side, then you can use the heat gun as required whenever you come to it. This is the group of decals for the front nose. I've broken them up into smaller pieces to try and make it as easy as possible to apply nicely and accurately. I've just got the front number plate turned around because of removing the backing paper earlier. I don't want to turn it around and risk getting any dust or dirt stuck onto the adhesive. You can use the decal layout to help find the various decals. You wouldn't necessarily have to arrange it like this before you start. I'm just doing this to show you. The first one that I would go for is the front number plate, just because it's central and these 2 navy pieces align with it, so you can make sure that you have a nice even, whether it's a 5 or 10 mil gap. So now we've got the backing paper off. I'm just going to stand directly in front of the bike, give myself the best chance to get it on nice and even. So I just touch on the bottom of the fairings. Apply it in the center, and then from here I try to get a gauge how even it is each side, looking down at the bottom corner and then up at the top, so that there's looking good to me. It's not uncommon for me to get it wrong and have to, you know, reapply 4 or 5 times, but the adhesive or the vinyl and the laminate, it's good high quality. So you can do this, it's not going to ruin it. So we're just going to take off the backing paper. I know at some point I'm going to need the heat gun, but I don't want to use it straight away because it can distort the shape, and you don't really want to do that if you've got detail printed on it. In this case, the number. So you can see them use my thumb here rather than the squeegee, just because of the shape of it. And I can start to feel if there's any creases forming. So a lot of them you are able to work out as it is. But then whenever it gets tricky, you can see here there's quite a gap now. So this is where we'll start to use the heat gun. That's fine at that side, so now I'll go on to the other side. So it's up to you now if you would want to split the decal from the fairing to the screen. If you're typically not taking the screen off, I wouldn't do it. Up close you can see a bit of a air gap, but from more than a meter away you wouldn't really notice. Plus as well, because there was quite a bit we had to heat and apply here, this will want to pull back, so you could end up seeing a few mil gap, which mightn't look that tidy. But whether we cut it or not, it is important to apply quite a bit of heat here in these two areas, or you know, you'll come back to the bike in a couple of days and it will lift it up. It will have lifted up to where it was. Vinyl gets quite hot at this point, so just watch your fingers. Sometimes wearing a glove can be better. I'll not go through showing myself apply all the decals on the rest of the area. You will have picked up enough by now on how to nicely fit them. I'll just point out on this one, part of the reason of creating a number of different pieces was to try and reduce the amount of fasteners that you would have to remove. So this piece, it actually sits up in between these two, and you can see where it starts at the bottom. So if you were to get it touched in place at the bottom, and then you can see where the best position for it up here is, which will line up where the fairing ends and the screen starts. And you can apply it where, once you're working down, you'll see the space, which is around 8 mil, and you can just make sure it stays nice and parallel to the front number. This piece here, so your starting point will be this corner. These two little pieces here, they're maybe not completely necessary, but if you wanted to put them on just to continue adding colour and completing the kit. This piece here, which I think I will show, it applies at the very top, and there is one fastener here. So what I would do is I would remove this fastener, and then I would get it applied in place, and then I would use the knife to cut out the hole, and then we can put this back in, and it sits over the top of it and it's nice and tidy looking. And then to finish it off, whenever this piece is in place, then you can apply this rather hard and just make sure that it's nice and parallel. So now we've got the decals on the rest of the nose. I'm just going to quickly go through showing this. So we've removed the fastener, and you just want to check out, sometimes some dust particles from the fairings or paint can come off, so you just want to give it another clean because dust underneath the decal can show up quite clearly. So that goes on quite nice and easy. And if we just press down, we can locate where the hole is. I'm just going to take this knife, and just on the inside you can cut a nice little tidy hole out of the decal. You can take a little bit of extra care to not to do any damage to the paint. And then whenever you go to get this tightened up, if it's possible, if you just use the Allen key and hold the Allen key in position, but don't turn it, and just have a socket or spanner and tighten it from the other side, that'll just stop the decal wanting to twist eventually once it starts to get tight. And it, you know, at least now you can see how clean and tidy it looks. So just on the tail, we've got these couple of different pieces, one for each side, and then also this center piece. So for the likes of applying this, you can see where it has to go. So I would probably remove just a little bit of one end, get it in place up here where I can kind of move it around and get a good look at all of the edges. So there is air release channels on the adhesive. So if there's small air bubbles, you can normally work all of them out. So you can see there's a bit of overhang there, and we can see there's a few mil over on this side. So if we really wanted, we could lift this off, and instead of working down the other side, we'll get it nicely along here. And you can see that was a quick adjustment, but it's just much nicer. Now for this piece, we've got a quick release fastener here. So if I was to apply over the top and intend to cut around, it is very hard to cut nicely. Plus as well, you would also be cutting into the paint potentially, which could be obvious. So I would remove this. And then like we prepared it earlier, which really you would remove the backing paper now from the centerpiece. It's been sitting a little while. And like the front number plate, I've positioned myself directly behind it to try and get that nice even location. So I've went over the top. I haven't really worked too hard in this area where the indent was for the quick release fastener. Kind of left myself a little bit of work at the back, which that's my fault for kind of overlooking. So we kind of have a little bit of a build up here. So if I put a little bit of heat on it, it should make quick work for it. You can see the difference that made. I wouldn't have been able to do that without the heat gun. And although I've got a little bit of air buildup in here, that's okay because I would now cut out the hole for that quick release fastener, and any air that's trapped in there, it will be able to escape. And then you would just apply the same process for this piece on the opposite hand. We're now onto the side of the bike. Typically this piece would be straightforward on this plastic cover, but there's already a grip fitted. So it'll be a good example to show how I would use knifeless tape. If you really wanted, you could just run a knife across it, but if you want to reduce the risk of scratching it, we will apply as we normally would, and then we will use the knifeless tape to remove the excess. So first, with the knifeless tape, we want to leave about 10 centimeters excess. So I'll just tack it up there. Doesn't really like to go around very tight corners. a bit of an uneven surface, but we'll try to make sure it's applied firmly. So I'm just going to try and lead from this corner, make sure it's nice and even. Over this hole. We don't have to worry too much about this bit. That's going to be cut out. Because of the rough surface, we'll apply a bit more heat. Try and make sure that the decal is adhered to as much of the surface as possible. Now with the knifeless tape, if you just fold it back on itself, just press your thumb over the end of the folded area and give it a little tug, and that will pull the thread through. And now you just lead it back over itself. Whenever it gets ready to start coming through the decal at the first area, just want to have your thumb over that and pull it through. And just come out here, and we'll just do the same over here, just to make sure it's nice and tidy. And there you have that side piece applied now, with a couple of mil clearance, so that there should have no issue staying on. I've gone on ahead and applied a couple more pieces. They're pretty straightforward and based on location for where to start them, and basically where they can go. This one following the line of the fairing. This particular one here, how I like to start with it is I just remove a piece of the backing paper where the cutout is for the bolt hole, and place the bottom of this down into the fairings, which will help automatically locate it. And ideally, hopefully there's just a little bit, about 1 millimeter, where we can overlap and just have a continuous white surface area. if you end up with too much excess overlap, at this point we've got about 5 mil. So at the end of the job, if you really wanted, you could use one of your knives and just trim it back a few mil. But sometimes I prefer to have the overlap than have it yap. And you could see as well, whenever I applied about this much, this part here was wanting to lead up really high. So I was able to sort of apply a bit of pressure, pulling it downwards, and able to make it work and get it in line with the fairing. Because a number of factors can make it fit inaccurately. It could be the angle where you're applying pressure as you apply can lead it off where it could potentially go. So yeah, we were able to just work with it on this occasion and get it fitted and looking pretty nice. Going on to the next piece, I'm going to choose to apply this rather than this piece, just because I'll be able to see where this blue line is, and if I really have to adjust this piece to get a close to perfect alignment flowing from this one through into the next piece, I can do that here. This piece here, it's pretty set in stone in terms of where it has to go. I've removed a piece of the backing paper like quite a few of the others, so, and I would use this here corner point here for where I want it to apply to, and then just follow the straight line up the side. This piece here as well, it covers both fasteners, but it's much easier to apply this sort of size piece onto this while it's fixed to the bike because it's being held in place. But we can get quite a bit of it on here before we take one fastener off at a time. I would probably take this out first, apply the rest of this, cut the hole in the decal, get this fastener back in, and then whenever I get up to here, before I would apply the decal underneath, I would just have it around here, because if any dust from the fairing or paint comes off, it's not going to stick to adhesive and then show through. So I would apply to about here, take the fastener out, apply this part, cut the hole through the decal and get it fixed back in place, and then worry about finishing this off. So that there's kind of all you need to get a good idea if it's going to be accurate, which it is. I don't want to stand in front of the camera, but not doing that and cutting from this angle is a little tricky, or it looks a little unhandy. I have a relief cut down at the bottom, which should make it easier in terms of using the heat gun. Some will still be required. I'm just trying to keep it fairly even on how I work through the areas. If I work on getting one side perfect, then it can leave a lot of work to do on the opposite end. If there's a build-up of vinyl, there's nowhere else for it to go. So if this here's a tricky part here, I'm trying to lead it up the way or out to either side. Couple of small air bubbles there, but easy to disappear. You can see as well, whenever I apply heat, I'm not pulling at it at the same time. If I did that, that would stretch and distort the decal design. Now we have this last piece, which is going to tie in from here to here. So we can see where we want to be. And if I'm honest, I actually went and removed this because it was up about 3 or 4 mil higher than what I would have liked. Whenever I was standing side on, I could see that the line of this GYTR logo, it wasn't perfect. So it's kind of personal preference. It was good, but it could have been better. So for 5 minutes effort, it's been improved. So I'm just going to line it up to this top one first. So it's actually going to be high, but at least I can see that, and I can try and do something now to work it down. Probably angle it even just by 1 or 2 mil. So now the final piece that I normally work on is the belly pan. I will fit all the decals whenever the fairings are fitted to the bike, being held in place. But just with the belly pan being down low and in underneath it, it can be pretty tricky. So I prefer to take the belly pan off, give it another clean, and set it upside down on the bench. So this is the piece that we have. So it's quite big, and if you really wanted, you could choose somewhere like here and just cut it in half, so you've sort of got maybe two slightly smaller pieces. Same sort of application process with removing a piece of the backing paper from behind to try and get it aligned properly. It does want to slide around on the bench, so I try and get the position right, get the decal touched on in place, and then I can get to work. So I've got it held in place in the top corner, and I'm looking at one of the edges down here towards the other side if I can get it pretty close. I think that was a bit of a lucky first try. If there is a person that could help by holding the fairing, that would be great. Just sort of wants to seesaw back and forward. Because there's a cutout here, I'll just try and remove this part of the backing paper, and then I can finish this off after. The good thing about this belly pan piece, we're avoiding any of the fasteners, that type of thing, so it is pretty ready to go. Because I was happy with the position, if I can get the squeegee and just lead it where it wants to go. Hopefully you can see okay. And then you just want to check the edges. Yeah, so that there's probably as easy as belly pan pieces went on for me, and just do it on the other side, and a few other small pieces, and that's job done. So that's it for the decal install guide and tips. I showed you pretty much everything apart from a few small pieces, the likes of this piece that's underneath the seat and the replica headlights and tail light. But from the various things that I showed you, you should have no trouble fitting them yourselves. And yeah, thanks for watching, and all the best with fitting your decal kit, and I hope you're really happy with the finished result. Thank you.